I'm Jack Bradley, in for Steve Lance tonight. President Trump in Scotland today for a 5-day visit that includes meeting with UK leaders and stops at his golf resorts. He's working to strike a trade deal with the EU while also telling NTD that he'll stop all funding for Harvard University. NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu has more.
Meeting with the Prime Minister tonight. We're going to be talking about the trade deal that we made and maybe even improve it.
President Trump touched down in Scotland today, where he'll be for the next 5 days. The president told reporters that he plans to fine-tune the trade agreement that he made with Starmer on the sidelines of the G7 summit.
I think it's more of a celebration than a workout. It's a great deal for both, and we're going to have a meeting on other things other than the deal. The deal is concluded.
Trump is also set to meet with the EU president in what he calls likely the biggest meeting of all. And on the EU, the president today sounding hopeful about a trade deal.
European Union, I think we have a good 50-50 chance. That's a lot, but the sticking points are having to do with maybe 20 different things.
This morning, on his way out of the White House, the president also touted his tariff strategy and recent deal with Japan. He even floated giving some of the money that's coming back in to Americans.
We're thinking about a rebate because we have so much money coming in from tariffs that a little rebate for people of a certain income level might be very nice.
Meanwhile, as the administration faces Harvard in court, President Trump told NTD this morning that Harvard wants to settle. This after Columbia University agrees to pay $200 million in fines after failing to curb anti-Semitism on campus.
What is your message to Harvard now that Columbia has agreed to pay $200 million?
Harvard wants to settle, but I think Columbia handled it better. But ultimately, we win that case. And the bottom line is we're not going to give any more money to Harvard.
Now in Scotland, the president's expected to host British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Scottish First Minister John Swinney, while also visiting his golf resorts in Turnberry and Aberdeen. Reporting from the White House, Mari Otsu, NTD News.
In the Epstein Files story today, a second meeting between Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche. Maxwell's attorney says she answered questions about around 100 people, and she didn't decline to answer any questions. He also confirms that the DOJ is not offering anything in return for the conversations. In the House, Congressman Scott Perry is moving to subpoena more people, including former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, former FBI Directors James Comey and Robert Mueller, and former Attorneys General Loretta Lynch, Merrick Garland, and William Barr. Lawmakers did not indicate what they would be asked or could be asked to testify if the subpoenas went through. $6 billion in Education Department grants is now being released. The funds were frozen earlier this month for review. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said, quote, "We want to make sure that we have the right focus as the department reviewed if the money was going towards a, quote, radical left-wing agenda." The grants will cover programs including English language, teacher development, and adult education. Several Republican senators asked for the funding to be unfrozen as it is already approved by Congress. A week ago, $1 billion of similar funds was unfrozen to go towards after-school and summer learning programs. The $6 billion will head to states next week before the school year starts in about a month. In the Middle East, Israeli forces continue to launch airstrikes in the Gaza Strip just a day after ceasefire talks with Hamas fell apart. Israel and the U.S. say that they'll now consider alternative options to free the hostages still held in the territory. NTD's Jason Perry has the story.
Residents in the Gaza Strip reacted to a reported Israeli airstrike that hit a building sheltering displaced residents, and emergency crews responded to the scene to try to save the injured. This comes just a day after the U.S. and Israel ended talks with Hamas for a ceasefire deal in the Gaza Strip, saying Hamas was the obstacle to reaching an agreement. On Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posted this on X. "Together with our U.S. allies, we are now considering alternative options to bring our hostages home, end Hamas's terror rule, and secure lasting peace for Israel and our region." But before President Trump spoke to reporters on Friday, neither country had provided any details of what those alternative options could be.
Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die.
Trump then implied that Hamas is using the hostages for protection.
We got a lot of hostages out. We took them out in numbers that nobody believed, a lot of them. And I said, when you get down to 10 or 20, I don't think Hamas is going to make a deal because that means they have no protection.
And as for what those alternative options could be,
I think what's going to happen is they're going to be hunted down.
he also commented on French President Emmanuel Macron's plans for France to recognize the Palestinian territories as a state. And Trump said it wouldn't change anything, as multiple European countries already recognize Palestine as a state. Some residents in Israel shared their thoughts on it.
I think that is a real slap in the face to Israel and the victims of October 7th. I think it's easy to put the blame on Israel and say, oh, we reward this act of terrorism with a Palestinian state.
I think it's a good thing. I think that every step that brings us closer to a state solution is welcome and can move us forward.
Meanwhile, a colonel in the Israeli army said there are about 800 truckloads of humanitarian aid sitting inside the Gaza Strip, waiting to be delivered by the United Nations. However, the United Nations has said they aren't able to deliver the aid because of Israeli access restrictions. But in a new development, the UN has agreed to open dialogue with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF, to determine a way to help deliver aid to the people in the Gaza Strip. The GHF responded to the UN saying, quote, "We are ready to get started as soon as you say the word." Jason Perry, NTD News.
Turning now to Southeast Asia. Thailand has declared martial law in areas near its border with Cambodia. So far, a total of 16 people have reportedly been killed as conflicts over a border dispute enter a second day. NTD's Sam Wong has the details.
Thailand and Cambodia exchanged heavy artillery fire for a second day on Friday. More than a dozen people have been killed and tens of thousands displaced in the escalating border battle. Footage shows vehicles with diplomatic plates passing through the Thai-Cambodia border, possibly carrying embassy officials back home after Thailand recalled its ambassador to the neighboring country. Far from the epicenter of the conflict, over 200 evacuees from the border region were relocated to a temporary shelter. A mother of a single daughter witnessed the unfolding of the crisis. The sound of explosions hasn't stopped, she said. They're falling constantly. All you can hear is the sound of explosions. Tensions between Thailand and Cambodia have been escalating since May. It began with the killing of a Cambodian soldier in a brief exchange of gunfire, which later spiraled into armed clashes. The State Department on Thursday called on both sides to drop their weapons.
We're also gravely concerned by the escalating violence along the Thailand-Cambodia border and deeply saddened by reports of harm to civilians. The United States urges an immediate cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, and a peaceful resolution of the conflict.
Thailand has rejected ceasefire calls from third countries, as both sides blame each other for starting the conflict.
This is a confrontation between the two countries. Our doors are still open. But first of all, before anything, the cessation of violence, the Cambodian side must stop.
The U.S. classifies Thailand as a major non-NATO ally and has been providing support to its weapons programs for decades. With a total of 360,000 active duty troops, Thailand's armed forces are 3 times as large as Cambodia's. Cambodia, meanwhile, has a relatively younger military, which was established from the merger of its former communist forces and 2 resistance armies. The nation also receives funding from China to expand a naval base, prompting fear that the location could be used as an outpost for the Chinese Navy. Sam Wong, NTD News.
Deportation flights have started from Alligator Alcatraz. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says that they began a few days ago and are increasing. Also, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says drones are becoming a growing national security threat. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
So I'm pleased to report that those flights out of Alligator Alcatraz by DHS have begun.
Governor Ron DeSantis says there's been a number of flights removing illegal immigrants over the past few days, and the number is increasing.
This airport is able to accept commercial-sized aircraft and conduct both day and nighttime operations. This provides an ability to enhance the mission to increase the number and frequency of deportations.
Alligator Alcatraz was built in 8 days and has over 200 security cameras, 28,000 feet of barbed wire, and 400 security staff. On top of that, the surrounding habitat hosts alligators, pythons, and other dangerous wildlife. DeSantis says the longer-term vision is to have immigration judges on site.
You can move forward with the processing very quickly and increase the numbers, and the flow would be there'd be a high turnover rate here because you'd be constantly doing that.
DeSantis says the state is working closely with the Department of Justice to make it happen.
We have not yet had any approval for anybody to be able to come down here and do that, but we do anticipate that happening very soon.
And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says that drones are being used more and more by enemies to smuggle drugs, target American infrastructure, as well as spy on U.S. defense assets. Noem says we're in the middle of a weapons technology revolution, and our enemies know it. As Secretary of Homeland Security, I'm committed to giving our frontline teams the tools they need to protect this country now and for generations to come. Noem says she visited the Customs and Border Patrol's Unmanned Technology Operations Center to, quote, discuss how we're using cutting-edge drone technology to stay ahead of evolving threats. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been ordered to pay nearly $3,000 to Met Gala vendors. An investigation by the House Ethics Committee reveals that she underpaid for her attendance at the 2021 Met Gala, where she famously wore the Tax the Rich dress. The bipartisan committee, made up of 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans, reports that the gown's designer, Brother Vellies, may have lowered the cost for her, violating House's rules against gifts. She also did not pay the entrance fee for her partner. The committee says that they will not sanction Ocasio-Cortez as long as she pays that fine. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated against aging of the brain, even in people who did not get sick. Now, that's according to a recently published study in Nature Communications. The study looked at brain scans in 2021 and 2022 and found signs of accelerated aging even in people who were not infected. The key finding was brain shrinkage, corresponding to an average of 5.5 months aging. Those who were infected with COVID-19 showed some declines in overall cognitive performance, but structural brain changes were also shown across a larger population. Researchers cited pandemic-related stressors as possible reasons, like social anxiety, social isolation, and economic and health insecurity. Men and people from what the study called deprived socio-demographic backgrounds exhibited the most pronounced effect.